Clocks and church bells. They're all words intertwined together. They fit or complement each other, with the idea of an inevitable, a beginning of an end, a death. But why? Time has existed since the beginning of, time. But this correlation between bell towers, monasteries, and clocks must have started somewhere. In fact, why did we create clocks in the first place? The first clock, or timekeeping device, was created in ancient Egypt by an Egyptian court official named Amenemhet. In a tomb description written in the 18th dynasty, it describes a clepsydra, more commonly known as a water clock. It worked similarly to an hourglass, but came in a variety of shapes and sizes rather than the typical hourglass shape. As time went on, people made improvements to this clock, and after discovering timekeeping is something you can do, created different ways to keep time. These other timepieces are known as sundials and hourglasses. So we have a way to measure time. While that is great and all, we don't really need it at the moment. It's great to have those things, but they really only act as decoration, not intended to be widely used. The day and night cycle was doing a great job at being a clock. People got up when it was sunny, started farming, as that's what the jobs were at the time, and went to bed when it darkened. Christianity had a huge effect on history and the world as we know it, and even that is an understatement. But it, just like timekeeping, started somewhere. As Christianity became more popular, people decided to start worshiping, specifically worshiping together. So, logically, they built places to worship together, like monasteries and churches. But to worship together is more than just finding a meeting place, it's also finding a time. People needed to be able to read, or more specifically, know the time in order to know when to stop farming and start praying. At first, they continued to use the sun. Historians believed people simply pointed to a place in the sky, and when the sun hit that point, that was when you met up. People needed a better system. They needed an alarm to ring and to remind them to pray. Church bells were huge, the average sounding about 120 decibels when you were standing right next to it. This allowed farmers on street level to hear the bell at around 67 decibels. It would be rung by a bell ringer, making sure it spread along all the farmlands so people could know to go start towards the churches. These bells were the alarms people were looking for. It was able to serve as that reminder to go pray and can be heard at all times during the day. The things these people did with the bells evolved as time went on. Now, they not only communicated the worship time, but also communicated all hours of the day, rang at important ceremonies and events, and even played songs called peals, as evidenced by the book Tintinnalogia, or The Art of Ringing, which shows increasingly elaborate ways to ring bells both recreationally and competitively. Bells were believed to drive evil away, so they were played at funerals and executions to stop the devil from taking the soul, starting in the 1700s. These church bells were the catalyst for combining the idea of time, bells, and death together. These talented bell ringers are the equivalent of the modern-day teenager. They drank day and night, especially in the bell towers, and only rang when they wanted to. The church, in a futile attempt to solve this, locked the bell towers up and even lengthened the ropes to reach the ground so they can only be rung in the full view of the public, but alas, their efforts went to waste. Still, the bell ringers continued to ruin the church's reputation. All they could do now was limit the things they could play, and so they did. The church still allowed bell ringers to continue to use their gifts to perform their peals, but anyone could do a simple one ring to tell the time, including a machine. Somewhere between 1270 and 3000 during the Renaissance, the bell ringer was replaced by a mechanical system. Now, instead of some dirty snob having to go all the way up to ring the bell multiple times a day, it was automatically rung without the need of an overseer. This system was a combination of gears that turned at just the right moment to ring the bell only at the times needed. Bell ringers still did their job of ringing songs, of course, but they were needed for fewer things so they couldn't spread their dirtiness as much. People loved it. The idea of a mechanical system to sound the time was huge, and clock production boomed. We learned to make them more efficient. We made them smaller. The church put up a clock with hands on the bell tower for ready-to-know time. We made them smaller. The church put a second clock on the tower displaying the wrong time to confuse the devil. We made them smaller. We started using pendulums to be more accurate. We made them even smaller, and now it's 2024 and we have screens displaying times and even an atom clock that measures how quartz vibrates and how many atoms switch energy levels. It's completely insane how we decided we needed to tell time and then solve that problem. The history of mechanical clocks and even bell towers is pure genius and is something to be admired.